If you see the python.org, there is different features. In there is something called as py. Py means Python, so package index. Python package index. Did you see how many were like? Earlier they used to call packages, but now they changed the things for the past 5 years. So to projects. Means one project can be like related to one module or one framework. So what is the difference between a module and a framework means? If you have a set of modules for a particular purpose, that is called as a framework. Say if you want to work on, say, cloud environment, you can just type cloud. You can see what are the different kinds of things, modules which are supporting. Say if you want to work on, say, Apple devices, you can just Google and do it. Means everything has a repository, right? Every language. So Python has its own repository like this. In reality, every big organizations will have their own repositories. They will not come to the open repository. Then how they will get means there will be some DevOps team who will get from this open source environment and place it. That's how you get from an internal repository. But do we need to get all these modules by default? No. The moment you install Python, you will get few modules already installed. So if you want to know what all the modules which are installed, you can go for the IPython environment. So I told like a Python can go like this also. There is a module called a sys. If you know what are the attributes of anything, I told Python is a object-oriented programming language. Whether it is like a built-in variables or like any user-defined variable or any module, everything, the story is same. If you want to know the usage, dir. If you see dir, you will have a list of all the things. In that, if you see, there is one attribute called as standard module names. If I say that sys.standard module names, you will get the list of modules which are there. So these are all the modules which are there by default. See, async. So did we deal with any of these modules till now? Not everything, but few. Did you see we worked on collections module? So we worked on copy module. So we worked on few of the things like decimal module. So I showed something like a date time simply. So one example. So like that, there are many modules are there. Will everyone work on every module? No. It depends upon your usage. You need to know which module to use at what time. Assuming that you have like a bike and a motorcycle or a car and everything, will you go on all the things at one shot? No, right? So based upon your usage, you need to go. So that is the decision as a developer you need to take when to go for a particular module. So the modules are like basic modules. That's what you are seeing. But sir, if I need to work on a cloud or something else, so those modules will not be there here because Python was designed for everyone to work. Every computational work, starting from biotechnology to astronomy and everything, cloud environments. So all the basic things that everyone needs, so they have included. Subsequently, if you want, you need to install it. How do you install? So we need to exit, say clear. So if you want to install, pip install. Pip is a Python command. So for installing. So pip install, what are the module you want to install? Say like, I don't know which module to know. So I showed you how to search here for a particular module. What if I want to search the same thing? So we can do like a pip search also here also. Say if I say cloud. So pip search, it will give the list of things. It is saying like pip search is no longer working. Earlier it used to be there, they removed it. So maybe like if you want to help, if I say for anything, if you want help. So standard things, -h if you use. So earlier it used to have help. But see what? Pip install is there, pip download is there, uninstall, freeze, everything is there. Pip search is also there, but now they removed the feature. That's what they're saying. No longer supported. It is saying like better go and use this browser based. That is the best way. So they removed that feature. But earlier it used to be there. So like that, if I need to work on a particular module, so I can say pip install. Let's say if I need to work on AWS cloud. there is a module called as Boto3. Boto3. So you can just go and download and install. So you see what happens? It is first downloading and locally installing it. So, and it also saying that, hey, a new version of Python pip came. Do you want to upgrade your version? You see, typically, if you want to install anything, even a pip also can be installed with pip. That's a beauty. Pip install, if I say pip, as it is already there, what it is saying? Hey, requirement already satisfied. I don't have. But do you want to upgrade it? So this is the process for installing. This is the process for installing. But if you want to upgrade, so you can write like this, hyphen hyphen upgrade, or you can write like hyphen capital U. If I say now, what will happen? If it is not there, it will install. If it is there, it will upgrade it. Did you see? Already it is satisfied and it is starting the installing the latest version and it is installing. See, the latest version is there. Now, sir, in total, you have installed right now pip, the latest version, and you did like Boto3 right now. If you want to see the list of modules which are installed, say you can say like pip list. If I say pip list, it will show the list of all the modules which are there. Now, some of the modules came by default the moment you install Python. Some of the modules you install, especially if you see the Boto3. So, you need to understand when you are installing a module, a single module will not install by default. Internally, they are using few other modules. See here, Boto Core is another module. sys.path is another module. Like that. When you install one module, some set of modules will be installed. So that's why when you install Boto3, it is saying, hey, I installed Boto3, this version. Boto Core is another module. JME path is one other, and S3 transfer is another thing. For one module, it installed 3 dependency modules. Like that, sometimes it happens also. So we should be careful. How to do that, how to work with that, let me show you. And one more problem here I want to tell you is that, let's say, in the same system, you want to work on one Python project where you are creating a web application. Another project, you are creating something else. So now the point is, in the same system, if you want to work on 2 separate projects where you want to work with different module versions. Till now, I told that install Python or upgrade Python. But if you want to work with a particular version also, we can specify. So when I did like pip list, I got the list of all the modules, right? Say like I take this example of Boto3 again, this Boto3. If you want to install, I can say like pip install Boto3. You can see this version, right? This is like 1.34. So and so. If you want a particular version to be installed, you can explicitly tell that. If you do like that, it's saying that, hey, this version is already there. Sir, what if I give like some other number? Will it install? If it is there, it will install. If not, it will give all the list of versions it has. Similarly, if you want to install a version which is less than this, so it is saying like no such file or directory. So we should be very clear in terms of this. And the second problem, what I'm telling to say in one project, you want a version which is something else, in another project, another version. Then how do you isolate these dependencies? So for that, we need to go for a concept called as virtual environment. So generally, everyone says now about the containers, about the concept of container means what? You have a separate set of processes running. That concept is slightly different. Virtual environment is different. Virtual environment means very simple. You will have the different versions of Python stored in a different file systems. Whenever you are working on a particular project, you can use it. If you see till now, we have nothing, right? These are ordinary files and folders. Now I will use another module, say pip install. If I say pip and setup tools, you remember these two things. When are you creating any project or any kind of virtual environment? First, we need to ensure to upgrade these two. So setup tools, you may not understand now, but it has a lot of importance at the backend. Pip, you know what is the version that it does. After these two were done, I want to work with something else called as virtual env. There are two things. VENV, there is another module. Virtual env is the another module. If I go for virtual env, you can create like a virtual environment. Now you see here, it is saying what? It has downloaded this because this module is not there. Sir, I did like -u. -u means like capital U means if it is not there, install it. If it is there, then upgrade the version. So if it already have the latest version in the repository, then it will not do. Sir, from where it is downloading all these things? From the Python's repository. So within your organization, if you want to install, so as let's say if you are in a banking or some other organization, they will not expose you to go to the outside world to download. Then we need to have one more thing. So index URL. This is one thing you need to remember. So then we need to have your custom repository, right? That URL we need to give. So your Artifactory repository. So private repository repo URL. If you give, it will execute. So let me make a list of all the commands that we have seen till now. So this is for like installing in a private repository. If you want to create and install. So if you want to just install from the public environment, so you need not give the URL. So like this. And this option can also be done in another way. If you see this concept of flagging, I will tell one of the modules called as argparse. That's where you will learn about these things. So either you can give like this -i or like index URL. And if you do like this, it will get from public repo. Public repo. So this is what you need to understand. So gets from private repo. So stated that sometimes they may ask for you the username, password, or some other details depending upon how they configured it. So, and these were the different commands I told. Now I created the concept of virtual environment I want to create. So how to work on virtual environment? Generally, after installing this, if I say virtual env, so I can specify like .venv. So why, sir, you placed a dot here? Generally, it is a best practice in development. Understand that any file which is starting from dot, it is like a support file. If you see like git ignore, it is nothing to do with the code, but in the git process, it is helping. Similarly, .env is also not for the actual code, but it is helping the process. So whenever you have anything which is supporting your code, but not the actual source code, you start with an underscore. That's a best practice. And by default, when you do virtual env, it will work. It is not a Linux command, but it will work because it will go and check in the Python repository. How it actually happens, I will tell shortly. But before that, sometimes if you feel like, when you do virtual environment, mostly in Windows, it happens. The moment you install, it may not go through the registry. It will take some time. So in that case, you can do Python -m. So if I don't give directly or do like this, both will work in the same way. So here we are telling explicitly that, hey, using Python, use a module called as -m with saying that within Python, a module called as virtual env. Using that, you create a new virtual environment. Did you see that it has created now? Did you see in the top, there is a virtual environment? And what are there in it? So this file structure is slightly different in Windows and Linux. In Linux, it is called as a bin and activate. So in Windows, it is like a scripts. Instead of a bin folder, it will be scripts folder. So if you see here, virtual env. So virtual environment creation. So if you want to create virtual env, and we should specify the virtual environment name. So environment name. So if I give the example as virtual env .venv, it will create. So we have created something like this. Now, is it like after creating everything will be good? No. We need to activate it. So this is like creation, then like activating the environment. So virtual A and B. How to activate? So in Windows and Linux, the file structure is slightly different. In Linux, I told it will be in this way. If you see like the tree of .venv, did you see a lot of files are there, right? The entire ecosystem of things are there. So, but by default, you can see, so we have a venv directory. In that bin directory, within that you have activate. So now, if I say .venv/bin, and within that we have activate. So for activation, so there are like activate.shell, activate.ps. PS means PowerScript, PowerShell. PowerShell doesn't work in Linux, right? So by default. So there is a .NET support for the past 2-3 years, but so we can use the shell script. So we can say like, if you want to activate .venv, so bin activate. It is saying like I don't have a permission. So generally in Linux it happens. In Linux, what we need to do, chmod +x. +x. What is this +x means? Generally in Windows, if you are working, you don't know this concept of permissions. Generally it will be admin permission or without admin. That's it, right? In Linux, what happens is for every file, there will be permissions. Read, write, access. So here, if you want to execute, means read, write, execute permission. So if you want to execute it, either we can make it like a execute permission, that one, or we can use the sudo command, right? So if I give like execute option, then it will be changing. So if you see the ls command, ls.venv/bin, if I say, you can see here -l. Generally -l will the list all the things. It will give all the permissions. Activate earlier is an ordinary thing. As you gave write permission, did you see that execute is there? For others, it is not there. So when I did like a +x, you need to understand this. Hope you know the Linux commands. If not, this is one thing you need to remember. So in Linux, first we need to do .venv/bin/activate. But it will not do that. So first we need to modify that by executable permission. Then we need to do it. So what is saying? Oh, we must use this command called as source. Okay, fine. So I need to do like this, source. Okay, these are the two commands we need to do. But in Windows, it's a very simple command. So nothing .venv, same thing, /scripts instead of thing, then activate. That's it, it will execute. These are the two ways. So what is the point, sir? If you activate means, generally there is a command called as which in Linux. If you give any binary, it will say what is the location at which it is present. You see, how can you know that it was activated means in the command line, it will start with that environment name. If I say which Python, generally Python means what? It should say like user bin Python, right? But what it is saying in the workspace, virtual env bin Python means it is not referring to the Python which is present in the outside. For every operating system, there will be Python. It is not referring to that. It is referring to its local version. So means like the virtual environment is activated. Now, if you do any installations and everything, it will be there. You remember earlier I installed Boto 3, right? So if I do like a pip list, I expect that Boto 3 should be present. But did you see that nothing is there? Now you understood a very clear idea. Whatever you install outside the virtual environment is different from inside. Now, if I do the same thing, like, so pip install Boto 3, if I do. Now, again, it will install locally. As part of it, it has some kind of support by modules also. It is installing all of that. Now, if I do the same command called as pip list. Earlier, we got only the pip setup tools and wheel. But now you see what all happened. there were a lot of support packages which are installed as part of thing. Did you see now? So this is what you need to understand about the virtual environment concept. If this is clear, then I can go to the next one. So you understood about how to activate it. So how to, which Python will give the location of the Python that we are using at any point. So without which Python, sir, if I need to do, how to do? Means if you go for Python or IPython environment, you can do like sys module. You can say sys dot executable. Sys dot, and if I do a tab, so I will execute sys dot path executable path will be there. Yeah, executable prefix. Yeah, executable prefix. It is saying like it's a string, it's not callable. Yeah. If you see now, executable prefix means it gave it. What is the prefix? So it is saying that Python was stored in this location, user local Python so and so. But if you do like a which command, if you want to do Linux commands within IPython, we can do which Python by just writing an exclamation in the starting. So it is saying this one. So sys also has one more thing. If I do a tab, it will show. So there is something called as base executional prefix. Sys dot, if I say, there will be different things. Executable prefix, base executable prefix, and something else is also there. So whenever we have virtual environment, executable prefix and base executable prefix, it will give. Yeah. So like that it will show. Okay. And again, coming back to the except what is that? Sys module in detail. We already worked on the math module. If I place this math module into the 0, 1, say like, math module. Okay, 0, 1 math module. I'll place it inside. Okay, and I think this is a wrong thing. Delete permanently. Okay, I forgot to create a new environment. Did you see that we are in the main branch? We didn't create a new branch. So we need to look through creating that branch. So what is that current class? So we need to go with class 23. So git checkout -b class 23. If I do, it will do. And git pull, it's fine. So the same thing is there. And did you make any changes? Yes, we made few things. So what all changes with our, as we didn't commit there, everything came. So now if I want to create for the sys module, I can do the same thing. 0 to sys module. So these were like the heart of the things. In Python, whenever we are working, it's like a heart. So whatever you work, they will be there. Especially within the sys module, if I say modules, yeah. So the best way to copy a module from some other place is like this, sys module. So if I make like .txt, so generally you should not do like this, but just I'm telling. And then after writing the content, I can rename it to .ipynb. So then I will get all the content as it is. So now if you see focus, I have the sys module. So I can select the kernel and I can execute, but I have everything ready. Yeah, this is what I thought of telling. So if you see the virtual environment, just now I told, right? There is something called as base prefix, base executable prefix, and executable prefix. Generally, when you are executing the default version and virtual environment, if you do like sys.prefix, sys.executable prefix, if you activate the virtual environment, you will get the virtual environment path. But base will be the operating system will have its own Python version, right? That it will be. So whenever if you want to check whether a virtual environment is activated or not within the code, so we can do like this. That's why if you go for Django application, when you're running, it will check whether you actually activated virtual environment or not by this path differences, and it will not allow you. Similarly, sys module has a lot of support for many things. So in terms of the byte order, if you don't know, there is a big story about it, but making it very simple, the system architecture in the initial days, like around 70s and 80s, when laptops, sorry, computers itself were manufacturing started, there used to be two different ways in which people used to create the system. It has nothing to do with us, it's the architecture. So there are two things called as big Indian and little Indian. IBM used to follow one separate rule and other organization used to follow some other rule. So, but finally everyone gone to the this one. So what is this difference is very simple. Generally, every information we store in zeros and ones only, right? But when you are storing a byte means 8 bits. So you have a lower byte and the upper byte, right? So when you are having the values, how the values are stored? Most of the time we know this kind of thing called as binary sequence. Means so 2 to the power of 0, 2 to the power of 1, 2 to the power of 2, 2 to the power of 3, like that. So this is like least significant byte first. So that is called as a little endian. This is the common format everyone knows. But if you go, there are some systems, so which are like big endian, means this byte will be this side and this byte will be this side. So why sir they did? Because of some patenting rules at the time after becoming open source. That's a different story. But let me tell you now. And similarly, we have the bin function which can tell you. And similarly, sys module has the copyright. The moment you open any Python interactive mode, you will get these things, right? Copyright informations. Means Python is also using this module for its purpose. And there is one more thing called as debug malloc status. So you are lucky enough in Python, we need not do the memory management, but it will do in the backend for us. So there are certain attributes which are not for a regular Python user. So there are certain attributes which are for the developers who develop Python. So you can qualify this as that kind of thing and ignore. And next, if you see further, so don't write bytecodes. So this is another important point. Whenever you have a Python script, and if you are importing, so the Python script, another script, then it will be creating a byte code. Bytecode file will be similar to a Python code, but it will be slightly different. I will explain that in the next. So next we have like default encoding. So in Python 2, the default encoding is ASCII. That's why when you are working with non-English characters, it's a hell lot of problem. So, but in Python 3, you can work with any language characters very easily. So that's the reason default encoding is UTF-8. And it is like system encoding errors. What should I do whenever an encoding issue happens? So there are different things. Surrogate pass, you can throw an error or like ignore, like that we have options. And this is something like get switch interval. Means the interval at which the garbage collector will go and check for any unreferenced object to delete them. Because Python goes with a automatic memory management with a garbage collector. So where they will use it. So how it actually works in Python is that, just imagine a very simple analogy. You are a janitor or a sweeper in your house, okay? And you found some paper which is thrown on a floor, no one is using. Then what you will do? You found that no one is using and you will throw in the dustbin. And if you feel like, there is a paper on a table and someone is using it or someone want to use it, then you will retain it. In the same logic, so Python also what it does, when a value, not variable, when a value is referred by multiple objects, means multiple variables. So till they are using, it will retain it. If it knows that no one is using, then it will remove it. How it knows that no one is using? Based on the reference counts. So if you give any number and if you ask, hey, what is the reference count? It will give the reference counts. So means there are three things which are referring. Why three, sir? Because so here when you define once used, when you are asking here you define, so here you once. So and also the get reference count, when it is reference, it will use once. That's why whenever you ask for any variable, minimum it will say 3 times. So if you go for numbers like 0 to 150, 500 means 499. Each number, how many times it is referred? You may start the program just now, but still it will have these many references. Means in the backend, the moment Python was up, so some process will be running in the backend, right? Some memory will be created. Some of the variables will be executed. So all those references will be there. And these numbers may be different in my system to your system. So time to time it may change. But why I'm telling to this is that, so based upon this reference counts only, it will decide whether to delete or store. So with this, they understood that, if you observe carefully, so initial first values only, it will have a lot of references. Subsequently, very less reference. Did you see? 3 means till now no one is referring, because here itself I am doing. That's the reason for lower level objects. If you remember, I told something called as dual memory management strategy. If you go for the basic language components, I told about the identity operation. At that time, I told about the identity operations. I told about the dual memory management strategy. Between -5 and so 256, it will not store, create objects every time. It will try to reuse it. So only for others, it will try to create. And similarly, if you go for like get reference count for some random things, it will give some reference. But it's okay. So, and the next thing is about size of. I told there are two tapes you can get the size. Sys.getSizeOf will give you the object, how much it is occupying. So, and similarly, we have the get Windows version. Windows version means it is saying the 10th version, means like Windows 10. So that is what you need to think. Service pack and other information. And similarly, hash information, it is not for us, but the hash function. If you remember, we are working with hashes. Have you seen that we can create a hash also, I told, right? You remember? So means whenever you're working with mutable objects like sets or dictionaries, it sets generally what it does. For every object you give, it will create a hash and store. So this is the hashing algorithm and its things. So this is, see here, if I create a hashes, for all immutable objects, it will create a hash. Hash is like a unique sequence of numbers. So unique number, I can say. So there are much more complicated hashes like SHA, SHA1, SHA2, SHA256 like that. But this is the SHA algorithm that we are using. So you need not worry about this, but know that this is the feature used by the Python developers who develop Python. And this is the hexadecimal is a function, its version. And the sys.implementation. I told that it's a C Python based implementation. If you remember, I told that Python was implemented in different ways. So means the Python code that you are writing will be first converted to C language. Then it will convert to the machine level language. Why we need to do like that, sir? Why can't we connect directly on the machine? Because Python don't have a compiler. It needs to work on some compiler. So C says Python is most famous 80% of the time. Other implementations like flavors are Java Python called as Jython, where Python code will be converted to Java, jar, and it will execute. Or there is another thing called as Ironthon, which is very less used, but there is also there, where it will convert from Python to .NET and execute. So for this version, it is giving all the details. And similarly, the int function, that's version. And there are something called as interactive hooks. This is very interesting. If you write any program, and within that, if you define interactive hook and if you register, the moment if you are going to interactive mode, it will be executing. So interactive mode, if a program, how do you execute means, generally you write any program, Python script.py, right? But if you do like Python -i and script.py, then the moment it is going to interactive mode, it will execute the function that you register. Similarly, there is something called as max size. As you know, there is no such limit called as max size, but this is like a dummy value you can think, because the size depends upon the CPU, sorry, your RAM and the private heap. But this value is valid, max Unicode. If you remember, I told this. So means beyond this number, if you take anything, it will not work. Generally, if you give any number CHR, you will get the character, right? It can be ASCII character, or if you give a big thing, it is like a UTF character. But beyond that, if you ask, it will throw a value error saying that I don't have this value in my range. And as I told you about the built-in module names, this will give the list of modules. And these modules may change for each of the versions. Some of the modules they will delete, some of the modules they may add. So, but explicitly, if you want something, you can install. And similarly, the sys version. Sys version means like, so the version of the Python. So the API version, so certain things you can ignore. But this is something very complicated, means confusing, I would say. Win version, they say. Win version, they say, but it is a ordinary thing. Python version only. But Windows version means that is the Windows version. And there are certain attributes which work in Linux only, certain attributes which work in Windows only. Like that also we have. And similarly, there is something called as get recursion limit. Hope you remember I told during the recursions. By default, you can imagine like a table. On table, we will have book. One book, if you want to read, you for reference, you open another book. But the table is a finite thing. So the number of books that you can open is also finite. Similarly, the memory is also finite. So we need to have some limits. For a particular case, if you want to increase the limit, we can use the set recursion limit. And so similarly, like print statements, when you do a print also in the backend, it uses sys.stdout.write. So similarly, if you want an exception, sys.std_write. And when you are doing an input, the input function is similar to stdin. Means what are the functions which you are using in the backend, they also will use these only. And there is a very interesting called as sys.path. Whenever you are asking for any module or anything, it will check in all these paths. And sys.platform will give the Win32. Though it is Windows 64 also, it will give Win32 only. That is the by default. But for a different operating system, it is different. For Linux, but Debian or Ubuntu, it is Linux. For like CentOS, Red Hat, it is Linux 2. For Mac, it is like Darwin. So for Cygwin. So who defined this? When they developed Python, they have mentioned this. So every time they will follow the same. Further, if you want to know, you can go with the help. So this is all about this. And subsequently, there is another modules like platform also to give like. Similarly, if you want to work, there is another module called as the platform. So which will give only the platform related information. Though with sys, we can get that Win32 means Windows or Linux like that. But if you want more details about the platform, there is another built-in module called as platform. So where if you see platform.architecture, it will give what is the platform architecture. It is 64-bit Windows C. If I execute the same thing now, it will give like Linux. But I am just quickly walking through platform.machine. So it is saying like AMD 64. So you will get more details about the platform. So what is the node name? What is the processor? So what is the Python branch if you have anything? So this is mainly useful whenever you are custom building Python yourself, but I think that is not for you. And similarly, what is a Python compiler? So it will say what is that? So compiler, so version, so and others information, and the implementation, Python implementation, what it is using. And the Python revision and all these things, few are for implementation people. And the unique uname. So about this particular platform and others. Now, going for the next part. Within the sys, few things I didn't tell. There is something called a sys.argv. This is very interesting. So how this works, let me take a small example. So command line args. So command line args is like a program which I created. If I do like a print, say hello world, I wrote. Nothing more, but like a typical hello world I wrote. And if I ask for the terminal, so I clear everything and I need to navigate to 10 modules, 0, 2, so and so. So clear and Python be so and so. Okay, so the name was not given properly. Okay, if I say ls, you can see that file. So clear and Python be so and so. So typically, you know how to run a program. Python space any file name. This is how we run any program, right? If I execute, it will say hello world. That is good. But if I go for instead of that, import sys, and I'm asking, hey, what is the value of sys.argv? Print sys.argv. So now you see, if I clear the screen, Python, the file name. Did you see that it is giving one argument? It is giving a list of values. And that list is what? The file name. And also, let me remember how to execute a file. A particular Python file can be executed directly. This is one way. So let me give like in a doc strings so that we can remember. If I execute directly, I got this one. Can I do indirectly? Means, can I go to the previous level? Means Python dot slash, and I'm going to the one level above. So one level above means what? 0 to. So one level above I have gone and I'm executing the same script. Did you see that this way also we can execute a Python script? When you give like this, it is giving. And did you know that a Python script can be executed by two levels above? Two levels above I have gone, means 10 modules. Within that 0, 2, and within that you have B Python. This is also one way to execute a command. So whatever the execution way you are doing, it will execute like that. Say Python. This time I'm going to 3 levels above. So means like even this one, right? So I can give the 3 levels I have gone, and I'm giving these 3 levels, and I'm trying to execute. Ah, so Python hyphen slash slash, yes, Python, and within that 10 modules, and within that 0, 2, and within that B script. So we have executed like this. So why I'm telling this is very simple. If I execute, yeah, why I don't know why it's not coming. Sure, what's happening? I'm unable to copy. Copy command. Not sure what's happening, but I couldn't copy. But what I want to tell is that if I give what are the command, it will execute like that. But apart from that, let's make it very simple. If I say Python and B so and so, it is executing. So along with my program, I can pass some inputs also. If I pass some inputs, no matter whether it is a string or an integer or a boolean or like a none, but everything it will treat like a string only, and it will pass those inputs. So we need to be aware of this point. So whatsoever you pass, it will take it. It is taking the commands, whatsoever you give. And if you see here, if I pass along with it some input like 12, it will take this input also like a 12. So, and if I pass like 2 inputs or 3 inputs, it will take all the inputs. Means if you pass like different data types also, it will treat like a strings only. Sir, in which case we need to go for this kind of scenarios? So I will tell that. So let me take a small example to explain this concept. If I go for say like a command line arguments. So one example where I want to prove, um, uh, yeah. So I want to create a small lottery ticket game. I want to create like a lottery ticket verifier game. So where user will give the lottery ticket number and I need to verify whether it is correct or not. This is the thing. So first I have like a winning ticket. So for that winning ticket, I need to match whatever the user is giving. So um, what will you do? Will you take the things in runtime? So definitely we can take the things in runtime. So if you do in a runtime, it would be like taking a lot of time. So sometimes when we have program which is running for 10 minutes, so we cannot wait for all the time. So then what is the best solution? We can go and get the things. So if I want to get this user ticket is equal to something else I give. I gave like some other thing. Now, how do you check whether both are equal or not? If user ticket is equal to so winning ticket, then I can simply say like, hey, you won the lottery, right? So else, so try again. Will any lottery company say that, hey, you lost a lot of money, don't come back? They will never say. So this is a very simple thing and it involves not too much logic. It's a very simple logic and it is executing. And what is the point you did? You hard coded it. Hard coding is a very bad idea, right? So hard coded. If you want to check something, will you go to every time to your script and modify? It's not a good idea. So what is the next better idea? So instead of doing like this, so we can get this value in runtime. So runtime is another good solution where you can say like input of enter the user ticket. So this is one way. So you can clear the screen and you can say Python. So yum so and so. It is asking for the user ticket. You give some ticket. It will check both the things, whether they are equal or not. But this is also good. But what is the point is like every time user need to enter and you need to run the program and also wait for all the things to execute. For this solution, it is good. But what if there is a program which is executing like, say, for 1 hour to get the response? Or like sometimes it executes only for 2 minutes, but it executes morning 3 o'clock. Will you sit there for that? So that is also not a good strategy. So this is good for these solutions. So it's like a runtime input. So instead of this solution also, the other solution is good is what? User input ticket. We can get from this sys.argv. Then which one we need to get? If you observe the previous one, you will understand that no matter how many you execute, the first argument is what? Means in the list, the 0th value is every time the file name. However, the file name you give, it will be file name. So you can ignore the 0th value and the first value onwards you can think whatever you want. So now I want only the first value, not the 0th value. Hope you remember now. So now if I execute right now, it is throwing an error that, hey, index error. This is good, but you didn't give properly. So if I clear it and if I say like, hey, Python, be so and so, and I need to give the ticket. It is working right now. It is printing what are you have given and it is saying what's ever done. So I think I am running the wrong program. So Python, so yum so and so. Did you see that it is saying it is throwing an error? So apart from that, if I run my ticket name, it is executing and saying that, hey, try again. So that is good thing, right? So fine. So one problem here, what we have noticed is that this is a very good strategy, but if the user is not giving the things properly, then there is an issue. So what we can do in a better strategy is like, before retrieving the values, we can tell to that, like a small condition I can write. If the sys.argv is not equal to 2, means when the user is not giving the proper inputs, say if they say Python, I yum so and so, user is not giving the entire input properly. So in that case, we are giving a help to the user that, hey, you need to run the program in this way. The file name followed by lottery ticket name. So to give this kind of thing, I'm using something called as underscore underscore file. If you observe this sys.argv, the zeroth value every time is the file name it is giving, right? The file name is not every time the Python file name, but the way that you are executing. This underscore underscore file attribute is like the metadata about the file, which will store this information only. So hope it's clear now. Now let's go with one more good example where you will understand the entire process of these arguments and others. For that, let me go for one more module called as argparse. 03 argparse. Never create a folder name with the module name directly, because it can override the particular thing. Whenever you are executing, it tries to look through this module rather than going to that module. And before that, okay, let me tell you one more important thing about that sys.argv. Sys.path, sorry. Sys.paths. That's the most important thing that you need to learn as a developer. Or let me pause a moment as we are working on this one, right? Let me explain that, as anyhow I started this one, argparse. Argparse is a Python module which will help to solve some of the common problems that we do. Whenever you want to create like a command line tool, so argparse is very much useful. So to understand this, I will show you the problem. Let's say I have one logic where I am using the print statement of this one. So generally I should go to the username, password and server name, and I need to do a SSH connection. But I don't want to make the things complicated. So just assuming that instead of connecting to a database, I'm printing it. If I was given 3 values, I will print them. Same like in the previous strategy, how to get these 3 values? One, we can hard code it. We can hard code these values, right? If you hard code these values, it can execute 0, 3. If I say clear and Python a so and so. If I do like a hard coding, what are the values are there? It is printing it. But hard coding is a not good idea. Say, assume that you need to go for user password for dev, UAT, and so production. If you write everything in the code, so what if the code credentials were exposed? Anyone can see. And this is not a good idea at all, even if you place the password separately. So that to address that problem, we can go for something called as runtime inputs. So instead of hard coding, every time you ask dynamically, it will give the values. So if you want dynamically these values, you can go with this. You see, it is asking for the values. If I say like Uday, and if I say like something as password, and if I am asking like passwords, like photos.google.com. So whatever you give, it is giving those details. So this is fine. But here the problem is that we don't know like what time we may execute the program. Input we should be useful whenever you are working with that very interactively. What if the program is running for like 10 hours, like a ML model? Or like what if it is running in the early morning, 3 o'clock or 2 o'clock, even if it is for 2 minutes? You cannot go and sit for that for some time. And also one more problem here is that, so when you are entering the username, password and everything, the password is like a plain text. So whatever you are entering, everyone can see. To solve this problem, there is one more thing called as getPass. GetPass is a Python module, which is also a built-in module. It has 2 main attributes, getPass.getUser and getPass.getPass. So if I say like, Python, say Python, and if I say like import getPass, so getPass has a lot of attributes, but the main things are like getPass.getUser, I guess, getUser. So getUser is a function. If you pass it, it will say what is the username. This is like a code space, but if you do in your local system, it will say the username of the system. So similarly, we have this function, getPass. If you see, same like input, getPass also will be there. Observe the difference how it works. If I run this code right now, I'm passing like the username and it is asking for the password. I'm giving in fact a lot of big password, but you cannot see anything, right? And if I give an enter, so it is not showing anything. And if I say photos.google.com as the web server, now did you see the password is coming? But did you see when you are entering, it is not coming, right? So whenever you want to create a command line utility, where you have sensitive data, where someone should not see who are sitting behind, so we need to go for a get pass. But there is still one more problem which is left. That what if it is running for like large amount of time, or it is running for a very odd time? In that case, how to get the values? As I told just now, so we can make use of the user runtime inputs, whatever you are passing. So to get the runtime inputs, command line inputs, we can go. For that, we can go for sys.arg. So as we need username, password, and server name, 3 values. And also sys.arg will give the 0th value, which is the file name. So totally 4 values should be there. If the length is not equal to 4, you can give some command saying like help. So then use will pass these inputs and we will use it. And we got like 3 values. We can use all the 3 values. So it is saying like, hey, help you got, instead of breaking the code. And instead, if I say like clear, so Python, so example, and I pass these values, say Uday, and like Uday at some password. And if I say like photos.google.com, now did you see it is working perfectly? At the same time, right, if you have 3 values and you are assigning to 3 variables, instead of doing this in this way, we can do this in a one shot by using the tuple unpacking. So this concept of unpacking, right? You have 3 values. See, from 1 onwards, I'm assigning, not from 0. From 1 onwards, you were supposed to get 3 values. So you are assigning to 3 variables. So this is another way. But here, the problem here is that no matter what you give, any data type you give, it will treat like a integer only. Sorry, string only. If you give a none also, if you give like a number also, everything like a string only, it will treat. And one more biggest problem is that what if you forgot to give the order in a particular way? Maybe you thought like, the first one is like the server name, and the next is like the username, and the next is like a password. You might have thought like that. But if you execute like this, what will happen? It will change. Means you are responsible for giving in a particular order. If you change these things, what will happen? If you make too many password wrongs, then it will break the code. It will log the account, right? So these are all the problems. 1, all were strings. 2, so the order also should be very careful. And also the help is also very weird. So we need to give our own help in a customized way. So to solve these 3 problems, we have the next solution, which is the argparse. What does this argparse does is like, so first we need to create an argpent parser. So it is a very simple thing. It will have a standard template. Whoever works, they will work in the same way. First, you create an object called as parser, argument parser.argparse. Earlier, people used to work with something called as optparse, but that optparse nowadays no one is using. Everyone is working with argparse only. This argparse will have something called as description and epilogue. Means you will get some kind of help. So let me tell you the Linux commands which will be working in the same way. In Linux we have ls command, right? If you want to know what to do with the ls command, if you have -h, or like if you see the man command, right? In Linux we have man. So man ls, if I say, it will give the manual of all the ls command. Don't you see that Python also, if you give help, it will be like this only, right? So they also followed the same Linux format. So if you want to get that kind of help, so that is where this is very much helpful. And now we understood that for us, we need three arguments called as username, password, and so and so. What are the arguments you want to pass? You need to add like here. Observe, I told you when you do like a pip install also, I told pip install you can do in multiple ways. I told that pip install uh, hyphen capital U. So a particular module name I told. So like this we can install, or like a pip install hyphen upgrade. So pip. So you can do. I told that you can do hyphen capital U or hyphen upgrade. Two ways we can do, right? So this how they did means using argparse only. So for everything, there are two types of ways you can do: short form, long form. Short form is like hyphen U, long form is username. So, and here itself, we are writing a help for this argument. Yes, this is for like help. And here, what is the type you want? If you don't specify, it is string by default. And we can specify whether it is required or not. If you say required equal to false, then you should give a default value. If you don't give, if it is a string means it will take like the default as string. Similarly, if I need to go for the password also same thing, right? Like a string. So I will add that also. For password hyphen p, small way. So long option, hyphen password. And I will give a help and I can specify the type, which is not mandatory, and required or not. If I say required equal to true. And for the third one, so which is the server name. For server name also I will give. You see the options. Small option hyphen yes. So long option hyphen server name. A help. Type also I give. Required equal to false. When I give required equal to false, then I need to give the default value. So now you have like three arguments. Will it work, sir? Now? No. So there are three steps. First, we create the parser object. Then we add the argument parsers. From there, we need to retrieve the values, arguments. This is how we do. Then how do you get the username password, sir? So with this args object, it will have these values. Sir, why I need to use username only? Did you understand the long form is this and same? And here also the password. Did you see the long form and this is same? Here also the long form and this is same server name. So that's what the point. So these are three steps. So first create an arg parser object, add the arguments, then like, get the values from it. So this is how we do, and we can use it. So if I execute right now, say Python a so and so. Did you see that I didn't give the option properly? So instead of throwing an error or giving a very weird support for help, it is giving a very proper way, right? So if you see here, if I clear again and ask, did you see what it is saying? Hey, usage, you need to give this file, and it is saying like a in braces. This is like a Linux format saying that whatever is in square braces is an optional. Did you see this is optional? Because he wrote required equal to false. So whichever is required equal to false, you will have this kind of brace. Even if it's man is like a Linux command for manual of anything. Let's say you want to get for the cat command. If you want to say thing, did you say cat and it is giving this means these are optional, it is saying. So like the same syntax, they have gone for here also. You see, these were the options, and it is saying an error. The following arguments are required, it is saying. So if I clear the screen, if I give again, did you see the following arguments are required? Means the username, either you give short form or long form, password, short form or long form. I am not satisfied. I want more help. Then I will give same Python example hyphen h I will give. The moment I give hyphen h, I will get a detailed help. Now you will understand what is the difference between description and epilogue. So description means like the help in the initially you will get. So epilogue means in the last you will get. So between that, all these options were generated based on the inputs you give. Did you see that the help is coming? So for each of the help, whatever is the help, it is coming in that structured way. And it is giving, say, like either you can paste hyphen u username or hyphen f username like this. So it's a beautiful documentation, right? First thing. And the second problem, what we solved is like in the process, if you execute these values, if I pass, say, Python, um, yeah, so, yes, if I clear the screen, say Python example, and if I say -u, Uday, -p, say some password, and if I say -s is like photos.google.com. Now, if you see what is saying, hey, bash command, some nonsense. Okay, you gave an ampersand, right? The moment you give an ampersand, it will think like a separate command in Linux. So if I give clearly now, it is working. So did you see that you got username, password, and so and so? And on top, what is the problem it is solving means you may not worry about the exact order. What if I place the username in the last -u like Uday? Did you see that? No matter whether you change the order, also it is working. And two, you can also pass like the data type, right? Those everything comes like a string. If you want parse like an integer, you can specify that. So, and the third thing, the weird documentation is also gone. So whenever you want to create a command line utilities, this is the best option. So hope you understood now with all these things. Now going back to the sys.path. With that we can so complete this. So you understood now about the argparse. What are the different things that we can do and all. So with the sys.path, so we can have something called as see sys.path. This is like sys.path. Very, very important and interesting. Generally, if I say import sys module, and I will ask nothing except that sys.path. Sys.path is the only thing which I'll ask. I need to navigate to the directory. So clear and Python C so and so. Did you see that you got a list of a lot of paths? So, okay, rather than seeing like that, it's better if you do a loop. So each path in sys.path, you print that path. Print of uh, print of each path. If I do right now, you will clearly understand. What are the different paths it is giving? Observe carefully. If I go for like, this command line comments, did you see? What is this? The current directory, right? So what is the PWD? Present working directory. So did you see? It is the current working directory. Means whatever you give, first it is checking in the current directory. Let's say the sys module we are importing or some other module we are importing. It will check here. If it is not there, then it will go to the Python library. So then in this directory, then in this directory, then in the set site packages. What is this concept of site packages means? Whatever the installed modules are there, so those will be present in the site packages. Previously we installed the Boto 3. That also will be there here only. So, and anything will be there like this. So site packages. So installed packages will be there stored in the site packages that you should be aware. Next, let's say I have created some kind of logic and I want to import something. I want to do some kind of addition, subtraction, and something and do. So for that, what I will do, I will create a module locally and I want to use it. Say like I created generally some functions. Say like I have two functions. Say addition and subtraction. Now if I want to execute, how do I execute? I can say like print of f of add of say 2 comma 3 or so 1 comma 2 something I give. Then what will happen? So if I execute, so the paths are coming, then it is printing this one, right? So this one you understood till now. Whereas similarly, if I go for the same thing, same like a print, I will have a subtract. Subtract if I give for the same values, it is executing. What are this? Subtract. But these files I don't want here. But say that it is there in the current directory in a different module. Say like I'm creating something called as a calculator.py. Calculator.py created. If you see the ls, in the current directory, you have the calculator.py. Within that, I placed these files. Okay, two functions. So I'm commenting here. Now, if I execute my actual code, it will throw an error that I don't know what is this. Now, how to execute the files which are in the current thing means we need to import. Till now, you understood how to import the built-in modules. Second, how to install a module and use it. But the third I want to show is like how to import a Python script which is in the current directory. When I do like import calculator, so it will do the import calculator. So, and there are different ways of imports, right? This is called as like, so absolute import. So absolute import, right? So whereas there is another thing called as selective import. So if you do like this one, so if you want to execute these two, so what is that we need to do? So we need to do calculator dot add, and we need to say calculator dot subtract. But if you see the ls command, did you see that you have only calculator dot py? Till now, I didn't import. For the first time, I'm importing and running. If I clear, say ls, I showed it. And if I'm running this script again, did you see now that I got these values executed? And the moment you imported something, did you see that there is a new folder called as PyCache? In Python 2, it used to create the same name with the .pyc in the current directory in the same name. But in Python 3, they created like this. So what the PyCache folder is there? All the cache files will be there. This is called as PYC, byte code file. If you open anyway, say if I open with a text file, did you see what you can understand? This is same our Python script only, but we cannot understand. This is a Python specific byte code, which only the Python interpreter can understand. So why it is created? To make the things fast for the executions in the backend. And this is what absolute import. And you understood about the, so byte codes. And similarly, in the sys module, if I say sys dot, so byte code, so don't write byte code is there. If I say like don't write byte code equal to true, but it will not do. If I do before the importing, and if I do, then it will not do. If I say rm-rf, and if I remove that PyCache folder, so if I see the ls command, ls-l, so or like say clear ls command, did you see that PyCache is not there? If I run this command right on Python c so and so, Python, uh, yeah, if I execute right now, so it is executing, it is going to the remote folder and do. But did you see the PyCache folder is not created? That is because of this. So whenever sometimes if you don't want to write, you can make it as true. So now if I make it as a false, so by default it is false. If I do it, so it will execute the command. And if I say ls command, did you see the PyCache folder created? And second point, it is like absolute import. Similar like that, we have something called as selective import. Selective import. We need to go for selective import whenever you have a module with multiple attributes, but if you want to import few. Say from calculator, if you want to import, add and subtract. Like that if I do, then I need not do this one. I can say simply calculator like this. So that also it will execute. If I execute, it will work both ways. And also there is something called as alias import. Alias import means the same import, but with a name. Say calculator as CL. So instead of a calculator, you can just do like a CL dot. It is that CL dot. So that also will work. And not only that, the sys.path will play a very crucial role. If let's say I have some module which is there somewhere in a different folder. So generally we should not import any module which is starting with the numbers. Say like I have some module which is located some other location. Say like I'm working on arithmetic or rational numbers. If I want to import this one, it will have a path. Then what I need to do in my sys.paths, I need to import that. So sys.paths is by default like a attribute, right? Sys.path.append of this one. So whatever the path is there, you give it. So if you give that, and then if you ask that import b ration store, then it will import it. If I execute it, it will execute it. So whatever is in the ration store, the subsidy and all this information are printed, right? And if you want, you can see that. And if you want, you can execute if there is anything involved in it, like this. So this is how you do like sys.path. Means local directory, you need not have any path things. But if it is in a different directory, we need to add to the sys.path and we execute. So that's why, so whatever is in the ration store, it is just executing. To avoid this thing only, we need to do like that, where if I say if underscore underscore name underscore is equal to underscore underscore main underscore underscore, and if I write the same logic, entire logic within that, then what happens if I execute this time, it will not execute that commands. So whenever you have some logic which should be executed, means like functions, if I have some functions outside, then it will be useful. And whenever you are importing, if you do